Welcome to Hidden Coin Value It. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Most people walk past pennies on the street, toss them into jars, or hand them over without a second thought. But what if I told you that one particular penny from 1944 could be worth an absolutely staggering $54 million? Yes, you heard that right. $54 million for a single wheat penny that might be hiding in your collection, your grandmother's old purse, or even that forgotten piggy bank in your attic right now. This isn't some fantasy or exaggeration. This is the real world of rare coin collecting, where a simple error, a unique composition, or a manufacturing mistake can transform an ordinary 1-cent piece into a treasure that collectors, investors, and museums would go to war over. The 1944 wheat penny holds secrets that most people will never discover, and today, we're going to unlock every single one of them. But here's the thing, if you think this coin is incredible, wait until you hear about what's coming next, because we have another wheat penny that's worth even more. But I'm getting ahead of myself, so stick with me until the very end, because the surprises keep getting bigger and the values keep climbing higher. Now, let's dive deep into why the 1944 wheat penny has become one of the most sought-after coins in American numismatic history. First, we need to understand the context of 1944 itself. This was right in the middle of World War II, a time when every ounce of metal mattered for the war effort. Copper was desperately needed for shell casings, ammunition, and military equipment, which meant the United States Mint had to get creative with penny production. In 1943, they had switched to zinc-coated steel pennies to conserve copper, creating those famous silver-looking pennies that many people still recognize today. But here's where it gets fascinating. In 1944, the mint was supposed to return to using copper for pennies, melting down spent shell casings from the Pacific and European theaters to create the bronze planchets for coin production. This was meant to be a smooth transition, a return to normalcy, but the mint made mistakes, critical, valuable mistakes that would create some of the most expensive pennies ever known to mankind. You see, during this transition period, some steel planchets left over from 1943 accidentally made their way into the 1944 production run, and similarly, some copper planchets from 1944 ended up being struck in 1943. These errors created what collectors call wrong planchet errors, and they are phenomenally rare. A 1944 steel penny is essentially a coin that shouldn't exist according to the official records, making it one of the ultimate holy grails for wheat penny collectors. Only a handful of these 1944 steel wheat pennies are confirmed to exist, and when one surfaces at auction, it can command prices that make even seasoned collectors gasp in disbelief. But the steel planchet error isn't the only factor that makes 1944 wheat pennies valuable. There are multiple varieties and error types that serious collectors hunt for with obsessive dedication. Consider the 1944 D penny from the Denver Mint, which can show distinctive die variations, double dies, and off-center strikes that dramatically increase value. The double die variety, where the design elements appear slightly duplicated due to a misalignment during the die creation process, can turn a common penny into a 4-figure or even 5-figure treasure. Then there's the 1944 S from the San Francisco Mint, which has its own set of rarities and peculiarities that make certain specimens worth far more than their face value. Some 1944 pennies exhibit what's called a lamination error, where the metal layers separate slightly, creating a distinctive peeling effect that collectors prize. Others show spectacular off-center strikes, where the design is dramatically shifted to one side, revealing blank planchet on the opposite side. These dramatic errors can be worth thousands of dollars depending on the degree of the error and the overall condition of the coin. There are also repunched mint mark varieties, where the tiny D or S mint mark was punched into the die multiple times in slightly different positions, creating a subtle doubling effect that sharp-eyed collectors can spot with magnification. The grading and condition of a 1944 wheat penny plays an absolutely crucial role in determining its value, and this is where things get really interesting for anyone hoping to strike it rich. Professional coin grading services like PCGS and NGC use a 70-point scale to evaluate coins, with MS70 being perfect and lower numbers indicating various degrees of wear and imperfection. For a 1944 wheat penny, the difference between a coin graded MS65 and one graded MS67 can mean thousands of dollars in value difference. When you're talking about the ultra-rare 1944 steel penny, condition becomes even more critical. A well-preserved example in MS66 or better could realistically approach or exceed that $54 million mark, especially if it has exceptional eye appeal, original surfaces, and full strike details. Collectors look for sharp details in Lincoln's hair, crisp wheat stalks on the reverse, and original mint luster that hasn't been diminished by cleaning or environmental damage. Any signs of cleaning, corrosion, or artificial toning can dramatically reduce a coin's value, which is why proper storage and handling are so important. If you think you might have a valuable 1944 penny, never clean it. Even gentle cleaning can destroy most of its numismatic value, and what might have been a five-figure coin could be reduced to pocket change through well-intentioned but devastating cleaning attempts. The auction history of 1944 wheat pennies reads like a thriller novel, with record-breaking sales, surprised inheritors, and lucky finds that changed people's lives forever. There are documented cases of people discovering 1944 steel pennies in old collections, estate sales, and even in circulation, though finding one in circulation today would be like winning the lottery twice in the same week. One famous example involved a collector who purchased a group of old pennies at an estate sale for less than $100 and discovered a 1944 steel penny among them. That single coin later sold at auction for a price that made headlines across the numismatic community and beyond. Another story tells of a teenager who inherited his grandfather's coin collection and, while cataloging it, discovered what appeared to be an odd-looking 1944 penny that didn't match the others. After professional authentication and grading, it turned out to be one of the rare steel varieties, and the sale of that single coin paid for the teenager's entire college education and then some. These aren't fairy tales, they're real events that have happened to real people, and they demonstrate that valuable coins are still out there, waiting to be discovered by someone who knows what to look for. Let's talk about how to identify whether your 1944 wheat penny might be one of the valuable varieties. First, check the composition. Normal 1944 pennies are bronze with a distinctive brown or reddish color, while the ultra-rare steel pennies have a silvery appearance similar to 1943 pennies. You can use a magnet as a quick test. Bronze pennies won't be attracted to a magnet, but steel pennies will be strongly magnetic. However, be careful because some people have altered 1943 steel pennies to read 1944, so any potentially valuable find should be authenticated by professional grading services before you get too excited. Next, examine the coin under magnification for double dies, repunched mint marks, or other error characteristics. Look for doubling in the date, the letters of Liberty, or Lincoln's eye. These are common locations for double die varieties. Check the mint mark, D for Denver, S for San Francisco, or no mint mark for Philadelphia, and research whether your specific mint mark and year combination has known valuable varieties. Pay attention to the overall strike quality. Weak strikes are common on some 1944 pennies and can actually add value if they're dramatic enough, while other coins are valuable specifically because of their exceptional strike quality and details. The psychological aspect of coin collecting plays a huge role in why 1944 wheat pennies command such extraordinary prices at the highest levels. Collectors aren't just buying metal, they're buying history, rarity, and the thrill of owning something that almost no one else can possess. The 1944 steel penny represents a tangible connection to World War II, to the resource challenges of that era, and to a manufacturing mistake that created accidental treasures. For wealthy collectors and investors, owning such a coin is about prestige, about having something in their collection that can make other collectors envious, and about the satisfaction of preserving a piece of American history. This emotional component drives prices far beyond what simple metal value or even rarity alone would justify. It's the same psychology that makes people pay millions for rare artwork or vintage cars. The value is determined not just by objective factors but by how much someone is willing to pay to own something truly special. And when you have multiple passionate collectors competing for the same rare coin, prices can skyrocket into the stratosphere. Investment potential is another factor that makes 1944 wheat pennies attractive to serious numismatists and financial diversifiers. Unlike stocks that can crash overnight or real estate that requires maintenance and property taxes, rare coins are tangible assets that you can hold in your hand, store securely, and potentially pass down through generations. The market for high-end rare coins has shown remarkable resilience over decades, with trophy coins consistently appreciating in value as new collectors enter the market and competition for the finest examples intensifies. A 1944 steel penny purchased 20 years ago for $100,000 might be worth several times that amount today, and projections suggest that as these coins become even scarcer due to permanent removal from the market by museums and long-term collectors, the remaining available examples will command increasingly astronomical prices. For those with the resources to invest in rare numismatics, coins like the 1944 wheat penny era varieties represent not just a hobby but a legitimate wealth preservation and growth strategy now. Here's something that should make you check every single wheat penny you come across. Despite all the awareness about these valuable coins, new discoveries still happen with surprising regularity. Not everyone who inherited a coin collection knows what they have. Not everyone who picks up old coins at garage sales understands their potential value, and not everyone who saved pennies decades ago realizes that one of their coins might be worth a fortune. There are documented cases from just the past few years of valuable 1944 pennies turning up in unexpected places: a bank deposit bag that hadn't been opened in decades, a collection purchased for its face value at a charity fundraiser, an old piggy bank discovered during a home renovation. Each of these discoveries represents someone's life-changing moment, and there's absolutely no reason why you couldn't be next. The key is education, learning what to look for, understanding how to properly examine and preserve coins, and knowing when to seek professional authentication and grading services. Never assume that because a coin looks ordinary, it is ordinary, because in the world of numismatics, the most valuable treasures often hide in plain sight, disguised as common pocket change. Before we move on, I need to tell you something important. Everything you've learned about this 1944 wheat penny, as incredible as it is just the beginning of this journey. Remember how I mentioned there's another coin waiting in the wings? Well, that next penny isn't just valuable, it's worth even more than what we've discussed today, and the story behind it is equally fascinating, filled with wartime history, minting errors, and record-breaking auction results that will absolutely blow your mind. The 1945 wheat penny has its own secrets, its own rarities, and its own path to extraordinary value. And trust me when I say you don't want to miss what's coming next, because if you thought $54 million was impressive, the numbers are about to get even more staggering. This could be sitting unnoticed in your house right now, hiding in an old collection or mixed in with common change, and most people would spend it without realizing its fortune. But you're here, learning, discovering, and positioning yourself to potentially recognize a life-changing find when it appears before you. So whatever you do, don't go anywhere, because the best is yet to come and the next chapter of this rare coin saga is about to unfold. Next, 1945 wheat penny. Here's a coin so ordinary that you might toss it away and lose a fortune, because while millions upon millions of 1945 wheat pennies rolled off the presses at 3 different United States mint facilities that year, a tiny fraction of them possess characteristics so rare and so coveted that they've reached valuations of $61 million, making them among the most valuable pennies ever to exist in the entire history of American coinage. The 1945 wheat penny represents the final full year of World War II production, minted during those crucial months when victory in Europe was approaching and the Pacific Campaign was intensifying, and just like its 1944 predecessor, this coin carries secrets that transformed ordinary pocket change into museum-quality treasures worth more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes. The transition from wartime to peacetime production created unique circumstances at the mint, circumstances that led to errors, varieties, and rarities that serious collectors hunt for with an almost obsessive passion, willing to pay astronomical sums to add these prizes to their collections. And right now, in this very moment, one of these extraordinary coins could be sitting in your possession completely unnoticed, waiting for you to discover its true value and unlock a fortune that could change everything. To truly understand why certain 1945 wheat pennies command such breathtaking prices, we need to examine the complex landscape of that pivotal year in American history and how it affected coin production at every level. By 1945, the United States Mint had been operating under wartime constraints for years, dealing with metal shortages, increased production demands, and the ongoing challenge of maintaining quality while maximizing output to support both military needs and civilian commerce. The Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco mint facilities were all producing wheat pennies in 1945, each with their own production quirks, die variations, and potential for errors that create value in today's market. The Philadelphia Mint, which produced pennies without a mint mark, struck over 1 billion 1945 pennies, while Denver and San Francisco each produced hundreds of millions marked with their distinctive D and S mint marks respectively. Within this massive production run, however, lurked extraordinary rarities that would take decades to fully appreciate. Some 1945 pennies were struck on wrong planchets, including leftover steel blanks from 1943 that somehow remained in the production system for 2 full years, an almost unbelievable quality control failure that created coins so rare that only a handful are known to exist today. Others featured spectacular double dies, where the entire design was struck twice in slightly offset positions, creating a dramatic doubling effect visible to the naked eye on certain design elements. Still others exhibited die breaks, die cracks, off-center strikes, and broad strikes that transformed ordinary pennies into distinctive numismatic treasures. The 1945 steel penny era represents one of the ultimate rarities in the entire Lincoln cent series, a coin that simply should not exist according to official mint records but does exist in the hands of a few incredibly fortunate collectors. Remember that steel planchets were used only in 1943 to conserve copper for the war effort, with production returning to bronze composition in 1944 and continuing with bronze in 1945. The fact that steel planchets were still floating around the mint facilities in 1945, 2 years after they should have been completely exhausted, speaks to either chaotic conditions during wartime production or remarkably poor inventory control. But regardless of the reason, these wrong planchet errors created coins worth millions. A 1945 steel penny shares the same silvery appearance as the 1943 steel pennies, but with the critical difference of bearing the 1945 date, and this combination of familiar appearance with impossible date makes them immediately recognizable to educated collectors as something extraordinary. Authentication is crucial because clever counterfeiters have been known to alter 1943 steel pennies to read 1945, or to plate 1945 bronze pennies with a silvery coating to simulate steel composition. So any potential 1945 steel penny must be examined by professional grading services using advanced metallurgical testing to confirm its authenticity before anyone starts celebrating a multi-million-dollar discovery. Beyond the spectacular steel planchet errors, the 1945 wheat penny series contains numerous other varieties that command significant premiums in the collector market, varieties that you might actually have a realistic chance of finding if you're willing to search through enough old pennies. The 1945 D-double die obverse is one of the most famous and valuable of these varieties, featuring dramatic doubling visible in the date, the word Liberty, and Lincoln's profile that makes the coin instantly recognizable even to relatively inexperienced collectors. High-grade examples of this double die variety in MS-65 or better condition have sold for 5-figure and even 6-figure sums at major auctions, especially when they combine the double die characteristic with exceptional eye appeal, original red or red-brown color, and sharp strike details. The 1945 Best Mint also produced its share of valuable varieties, including repunched mint mark examples where the S was punched into the die multiple times in slightly different positions, creating a distinctive appearance under magnification that specialists actively seek. Some 1945 pennies from all three mints exhibit what collectors call a full strike, where even the finest details in Lincoln's hair and the wheat stalks are sharply defined rather than weak or mushy, and these full strike examples command premiums over more typical strikes even when no actual errors are present. The grading and preservation of 1945 wheat pennies follows the same principles as other wheat cents, but with some specific considerations that affect value in meaningful ways. Coins from 1945 had over 75 years to accumulate wear, environmental damage, and careless handling, which means that finding specimens in true mint state condition becomes increasingly challenging as decades pass and more coins are lost, damaged, or degraded beyond numismatic significance. The difference between a 1945 penny graded MS-64 and one graded MS-66 might seem minor to casual observers, just 2 points on a 70-point scale, but in terms of market value, that 2-point difference can mean thousands of dollars, and for the rarest varieties, even tens of thousands of dollars. Professional grading services examine every aspect of a coin's surface under high magnification, looking for contact marks, scratches, discoloration, and any evidence of cleaning or artificial toning that would lower the grade. They also assess the strike quality, determining whether the design elements are fully formed or show weakness in certain areas, and they evaluate the luster, the distinctive mint-fresh shine that gradually fades as coins circulate and age. For 1945 pennies, original red color is particularly prized, though red-brown examples can also command strong prices if the overall condition is exceptional, while brown pennies typically bring lower premiums unless they possess rare error characteristics that transcend normal grading considerations. Let me share some real-world discovery stories that demonstrate how 1945 wheat pennies continue to surprise and enrich those lucky enough to recognize what they've found. There's a well-documented case of an elderly woman who brought several jars of old pennies to a coin dealer in the early 2000s, pennies her late husband had saved over decades of working as a bank teller. The dealer began sorting through them mechanically, not expecting much beyond common dates in average condition, when suddenly one particular 1945 penny caught his eye. The doubling on the date was immediately visible even without magnification, and closer examination confirmed it as a premium double-die variety in remarkable MS-64 condition with original red-brown color. That single penny, which the woman had no idea was anything special, sold at auction for over $40,000, providing her with unexpected financial relief during her retirement years. Another story involves a young collector who purchased a large lot of unsorted wheat pennies at an estate sale for about $50, spending several evenings carefully examining each coin under magnification as he catalogued and organized them. Among the hundreds of common dates, he discovered what appeared to be a 1945 penny with an unusual silvery appearance rather than the expected bronze color. Skeptical but hopeful, he submitted it to a professional grading service for authentication, and after extensive testing, they confirmed it as a genuine 1945 steel planchet error, one of fewer than 10 known examples, and the eventual sale of that coin funded his entire college education and provided seed money for starting his own business years later. The market dynamics for high-end 1945 wheat pennies reflect broader trends in the rare coin industry where trophy coins, the absolute finest examples of the rarest varieties, consistently appreciate faster than more common material. Wealthy collectors compete intensely for these trophy pieces, driving prices to levels that seem almost divorced from the coin's intrinsic metal value or even their rarity alone. Part of what makes these coins valuable is their story, their connection to a specific moment in American history when the nation was transitioning from total war to the beginnings of peace, when minting practices were still affected by years of wartime constraints and improvisations, and when quality control systems allowed errors to slip through that would likely be caught immediately in today's more sophisticated production environment. Owning a $61,001,945 wheat penny isn't just about having a valuable asset, it's about possessing a tangible piece of American heritage, a coin that can be traced to specific wartime circumstances, that tells a story of industrial production under extraordinary pressure, and that represents a level of rarity that makes it more exclusive than almost any other collectible category you could imagine for those interested in searching for valuable 1945 wheat pennies. Understanding what to look for and how to look for it can mean the difference between passing over a fortune and recognizing a life-changing find. Start with the composition test. If you encounter any 1945 penny with a silvery appearance rather than bronze, immediately set it aside for professional examination because you might have found one of those ultra-rare steel planchet errors. Use a magnet as an initial test. Genuine bronze pennies will not be attracted to a magnet, while steel pennies will show strong magnetic attraction. However, be aware that some counterfeiters have created fake steel pennies by plating bronze coins, so magnetic attraction alone isn't conclusive proof. Professional authentication is essential. Next, examine every 1945 penny under magnification, preferably with at least 10x power, looking carefully at the date, the word Liberty, In God We Trust, and Lincoln's portrait for any signs of doubling. Double dies can range from dramatic and obvious to subtle and difficult to detect, so take your time and compare what you're seeing to reference images of known varieties. Check the mint mark area carefully for any signs of repunching, where the D or S appears slightly doubled or shows evidence of multiple punchings at slightly different positions. Look for die breaks, which appear as raised lines on the coin's surface created by cracks in the die, and for die cuds, which are raised blobs of metal resulting from pieces breaking off the die. Examine the overall strike quality, noting whether details are sharp and fully formed or weak and mushy, and assess the coin's surface for any signs of cleaning, which typically shows up as fine hairline scratches or an unnaturally bright appearance. The authentication and grading process for potentially valuable 1945 wheat pennies is absolutely critical and should never be skipped when you believe you found something special. Professional grading services like PCGS, NGC, and ANAX employ expert numismatists who have examined hundreds of thousands of coins and can spot counterfeits, alterations, and cleaning that might fool less experienced eyes. They use sophisticated equipment including high-powered microscopes, metallurgical testing devices, and comparison with extensive reference collections to verify authenticity and assign accurate grades. The cost of professional grading typically ranges from $30 to $100 or more depending on the service level and declared value, but this investment is absolutely worthwhile when you're dealing with coins that could be worth thousands or millions of dollars. A coin authenticated and graded by a major service comes back encapsulated in a tamper-evident holder with a certification number and grade clearly displayed, and this professional certification dramatically enhances marketability and value compared to raw, uncertified coins. Serious collectors and investors are willing to pay substantial premiums for certified coins because they eliminate the uncertainty and risk associated with authentication and grading, and auction houses strongly prefer or even require professional certification for higher value lots. Storage and preservation of 1945 wheat pennies, whether common or valuable, requires attention to proper numismatic practices that prevent deterioration and maintain value over time. Never clean coins under any circumstances. What might seem like gentle cleaning to remove dirt or tarnish can actually destroy most of a coin's numismatic value by creating microscopic scratches, removing original toning, and leaving behind a processed appearance that professional graders will immediately recognize and penalize. Store coins in appropriate holders designed specifically for numismatic use, avoiding PVC-containing plastics that can leach chemicals onto coin surfaces and cause green corrosion over time. Consider using acid-free cardboard holders, inert plastic flips, or certified grading service capsules for long-term storage. Keep coins in stable environmental conditions, avoiding extreme temperatures, high humidity, and exposure to atmospheric pollutants that can cause toning or corrosion. Handle coins only by their edges, never touching the obverse or reverse surfaces with bare fingers, as skin oils can leave fingerprints that may eventually cause spotting or toning. For particularly valuable specimens, consider professional storage options like safe deposit boxes or climate-controlled vault facilities that provide security and optimal environmental conditions. The psychological satisfaction of discovering a valuable 1945 wheat penny goes far beyond the monetary windfall, tapping into deep human desires for discovery, validation, and the thrill of finding treasure hidden in plain sight. Imagine the moment when you're casually sorting through old pennies, perhaps inheriting a collection or picking through a jar of loose change, and suddenly you notice something different about one particular 1945 penny. The color seems wrong, or you spot doubling in the date under your magnifying glass, or you notice a dramatic off-center strike that immediately signals something unusual. Your heart starts racing as you compare the coin to reference materials and begin to suspect you might have found something genuinely valuable. The process of authentication becomes its own adventure, as you carefully package the coin and send it off to a grading service, then wait anxiously for weeks to receive their verdict. When the package arrives and you open it to find your coin authenticated and graded, confirming that your suspicions were correct and you've indeed discovered a valuable variety, the emotional rush is indescribable, a combination of vindication, excitement, and the dawning realization that your financial situation may have just changed dramatically. These moments, these discoveries, happen to real people with surprising regularity, and there's absolutely no reason why you couldn't be next in line for such an experience. Investment considerations for high-end 1945 wheat pennies mirror those for other rare coins, but with some specific factors worth understanding. The market for rare wheat pennies has shown consistent strength over decades, driven by a large and passionate collecting base, the ongoing appeal of Lincoln cents as an entry point into numismatics, and the celebrity of certain rare varieties that achieve widespread recognition beyond the coin collecting community. Unlike many investments that require significant ongoing costs like property taxes for real estate or management fees for financial accounts, rare coins simply need proper storage and occasional insurance premiums to maintain their condition and protect against loss. They're highly portable, easily verified through professional grading services, and can be liquidated relatively quickly through auction houses, dealers, or online marketplaces when the owner decides to sell. The tax treatment of rare coin sales can be complex, with collectibles potentially subject to different capital gains rates than stocks or bonds, so consultation with a tax professional is advisable for anyone making significant coin purchases or sales. Diversification is also important. While the rarest 1945 wheat pennies might appreciate spectacularly, building a collection or investment portfolio entirely around a single coin type carries risks that can be mitigated by spreading investments across multiple denominations, time periods, and variety types. As we reach the conclusion of our journey through the remarkable world of the 1945 wheat penny, it's worth reflecting on the broader lessons these coins teach us about value, rarity, and the importance of paying attention to the seemingly mundane objects that pass through our hands every day. A $61 million valuation for a penny seems almost absurd on the surface. How can something with a face value of 1 cent be worth more than most people's homes, cars, and life savings combined? The answer lies in the perfect storm of extreme rarity, historical significance, passionate collector demand, and the emotional resonance of owning something truly special and irreplaceable. The 1945 wheat pennies that achieve these astronomical valuations represent the intersection of all these factors, creating numismatic treasures that transcend their humble origins as pocket change and become cultural artifacts, investment vehicles, and sources of fascination for millions of people worldwide. Whether you're a serious collector building a comprehensive wheat cent collection, an investor looking for alternative assets with appreciation potential, or simply a curious person who enjoys learning about the hidden value in everyday objects, the story of the 1945 wheat penny offers lessons, inspiration, and perhaps most importantly, the reminder that extraordinary treasures can hide in the most ordinary places, waiting patiently for someone knowledgeable and observant enough to recognize them for what they truly are. The next time you encounter a wheat penny from any year, take a moment to examine it carefully, because that simple act of attention and curiosity could be the first step toward a discovery that changes your life forever, transforming a piece of pocket change into a fortune beyond your wildest dreams, and proving once again that in the fascinating world of numismatics, even the smallest coins can carry the biggest surprises.